Unit 4114 is 11 feet by 10. It has a roll-up door, and it costs $214 a month. It is paid annually, in cash, by money order, in the name of a woman who died in 2009. Inside it, stacked on 2 pallets so nothing touches the concrete, are 4 duffel bags and 2 footlockers holding $4.5 million in used American banknotes. 99 kilos of paper. That is what $18 million of other people's diamonds turns into once a fence has taken his cut. And for 14 months, nobody in the crew touches a single note of it. Not because they are patient, because they cannot work out how to spend it. This is the part of a robbery that no film has ever shown you, and it is the part that actually decides everything. The vault took 1 weekend. The money took 6 years. In those 6 years, the man who planned it will discover that he does not own the machine he thinks he owns, that he is a customer of something much larger, and that the safest woman in this entire story has a 14% stake in every dollar he has ever stolen. 3 more people will die before it is finished, and not one of them will be killed by the government. $4.5 million will quietly become $700,000. And none of it comes apart because somebody talked. It comes apart because of a water bill. POV of the financier. He is not spending money. He is holding a liability. Beats. Cash has a carrying cost, storage, risk, and the fact that it quietly loses value every year it sits. The line, cash is not money. Cash is evidence that hasn't been processed yet. State the 3-stage shape once: placement, layering, integration, as a shape, never as instructions, then never use the jargon again. Show the video 3 withdrawal ledger. Delgado, the documents, the run, Sabrina's house. Close on the dead men's shares sitting in the unit, legally radioactive. The fence who got away and cannot leave. 60-something, a bench, a loop, a legitimate business, and a week spent solving other people's document problems. Play the first 90 seconds as loyalty. Let the audience believe it, because they have believed it for 2 videos. Then T1. In 2017, Solomon wrote out a single receipt by hand for a man he trusted, because that is how the trade has always worked. The financier has had it ever since. He mentions it once, in the spring of 2019, in the middle of a sentence about something completely different, and then never refers to it again for 6 years. That is the entire mechanism. He does not know my name either. That is not trust. That is design. And now the audience hears that line the other way round. Close on the dread. Solomon no longer knows where the money physically is, and he has understood that he is not permitted to ask. The arithmetic section, and the most important 11 images in part 1. A laundromat is not a magic box. Floor area, machine count, cycle time, price, a plausible customer ceiling. Put the maths on screen. Machines times cycles, times price times days. Land $600,000 a year and 7.5 years. Then the plant, 1 clause, no emphasis, and move on immediately. You can overstate customers. You can overstate hours. The only thing a car wash cannot overstate is how wet it gets. Structuring told as labor, not technique. Denny Nowak is 19, paid $200 a day and does not know whose money it is. 9 branches, 4 boroughs, never the same teller twice. The beat most people do not know. Deliberately staying under the reporting line is its own separate felony. The workaround is a bigger crime than the thing it works around. Then the beat that stops it being a caper. After run 3, Denny asks to stop. Nobody argues with him. He is handed an envelope containing photocopies of 9 of his own deposit slips, his signature on everyone, and $200 in fresh notes on top. Not one word is said about what the photocopies are for. He takes the 200, and he does 11 more runs. Plant the furniture for T4 here and do not draw attention to it. In 3 of these frames, there is a man in a shirt and tie, at a desk behind the counter, watching nothing in particular. Close on the spoiler. The teenager holding the envelope will do more time than the man who fenced $18 million in diamonds. Ruth Pacheco, 71, signs a document for $5,000 and a favor for a neighbor's son. Play it warm and slow. It should not feel like a crime scene, because to her it is not one. She is the film's innocent. The Anthony Reyes of Video 4. Land the wince. She has no idea she has just become the legal owner of a house she will never see, or that the one she does live in is now standing behind it. Then jump forward inside the section, to 2022. A letter arrives that she does not understand, and she does something nobody in this film ever does. She asks. A polite young man visits, apologizes for the confusion, has a cup of tea and leaves. After he goes, she finds a photograph on her kitchen table, her grandson's school gate, taken that morning from across the road. Nobody ever mentions it. There is no threat, no demand, no follow-up visit, and no crime that could be charged. She never asks another question for 2 years. Hold this on absence, the photograph on the table and the empty chair, and give it 4 full seconds of room tone. Ed Rourke and the Attorney Trust account, the only account in the country built by design to hold other people's money without explaining it. Gatekeeper professions are where laundering actually lives, and almost none of it looks like crime from the inside. His self-justification is the engine. He never asks, so he never knows. And not asking is the whole service. Then name the mechanism that traps him, because it is the cleanest idea in the film, the ratchet. Rourke is coerced exactly once, and only into the first transaction. After that, he can never report anything without confessing to it. So he can never be coerced again, because he no longer needs to be. The second favor is free. That is what the first one was for. Every gatekeeper in this story is captured the same way, and none of them noticed the door closing, because nothing about the first one felt like a crime. Victor Amato. A strip mall office, a fax machine, no sign. Explain mirror settlement cleanly in 40 seconds. Money owed in one country paid out in another. Netted, so $400,000 reaches a man on the Venezuelan coast without $1 crossing a border and without one wire the Treasury can see. Then the escape lands. March 2019. 4 men come out of a hole in the ground, and every cost arrives at once. They need to go faster than the ceiling allows. Amato listens to the number and tells them he cannot carry it. Then he says the sentence that turns the film. I can introduce you, but she will not be your partner. The reveal and the best section in part 1. Owuli, in daylight, in an ordinary office. Establish what a netting book is by walking one loop end to end. Queens owes Venezuela, Lagos owes Houston, Houston owes Dubai. And land the killer, fact. No money moved, and every debt was paid. Then the reversal. He is not a partner. He is client 61. He may not ask who the others are. Her fee is 14% of everything the book touches, and it is charged whether the loop closes or not. He signs an intake sheet, which is the only stupid thing he does in 8 years. Close part 1 on the ceiling being broken and nothing happening. They go over the line in the spring of 2019, and for 6 years, nobody looks at it once. Unit 4114, roll-up door open, pallets bare, one dropped banknote on the concrete. It worked. That is the uncomfortable part. It worked for 6 years, and every person in this story believed they had gotten away with it, because for 6 years they had. Then T3, in the last 20 seconds of part 1, over a single static image of a form in a filing drawer. The intake sheet he filled in 90 seconds ago, the one the audience watched him sign without thinking about it, is a confession in his own handwriting. Every client of the book signs one on the first day. Owuli has never used one, not once, in 5 years of running the book. She does not blackmail anybody. She collects the ability to, and then she leaves it in a drawer, which works better. Rebuild the world in 40 seconds for the viewer who arrives here first. The vault, the hole under the prison, the storage unit, the machine, the woman with the book. Then the promise. This half is about the 90 days it took to undo 6 years. And it starts with a form that nobody reads, and it ends with 3 funerals that nobody attends together. The most elegant leg, and the film's driest joke. He lends himself his own money through an entity he owns, repays it on schedule out of car wash revenue, and deducts the interest. He is being paid to receive his own stolen cash, and the deduction makes his tax return look more honest, not less. Land it, let the audience enjoy it for 4 seconds, then plant the knife. A loan needs a lender, and one day somebody is going to ask who the lender is. Trade-based laundering through one used Corolla invoiced to Lagos at 4 times its value. Fast, vigorous section. The audience realizes the machine had a leg they had not been shown, and that it had been losing money the entire time. 2 years of laundering at a loss, never noticed. Then it stops being funny. August 2021. A container is opened by an inspector who was not the usual inspector, and Tunde Aroyewun does not come to work again. Aftermath framing only. The open container at dawn, the office with the fan still turning. The shipment clears 11 days later under a different stamp. The trade leg is shut down quietly, and nobody in New York is told why. Grace Lynn, 29, compliance analyst. She notices a pattern that is not sophisticated. Same 3 names, 9 branches, deposits stopping just short of a number. She files it. Then the film explains why nothing happens. Volume. Roughly 4 million of these reports are filed a year in the United States, and almost all are filed to protect the bank, not to catch anyone. Hers sits in a queue for 19 months. She's managed out for velocity issues, for being slow because she was reading things. And then T4, and it should land like a slap, because the audience has spent 90 seconds comfortably blaming a system. The report did not age out on its own. Deleting a filed report leaves a permanent record, so nobody sensible deletes one. They re-queue it into a batch review, where it sits legally, visibly, and permanently unread. A branch manager 22 years into the same job, taking $3,000 a month to make sure 3 particular customers were always served at the right window, did exactly that in December 2020. He is the man in the shirt and tie standing behind Denny Nowak in Part 1. He is also the author of Grace Lynn's performance review. She was not failed by a bureaucracy. She was filed by a man who was already being paid. Priya Raman, IRS Criminal Investigation. Establish the discipline. Financial investigators do not look for criminals. They look for two documents that disagree. Her caseload is 41 files. This is number 29. She opens it because the backlog analyst who finally read Grace Lynn's report attached one sentence, and the sentence is about a car wash. The detonation. Revenue up 168% since 2018. Municipal water flat within 4%. Electricity, flat. Soap and chemical invoices, flat. The business was not busy. The business was a story told to a spreadsheet. Then the second detonation in the same section. She runs the same test on the 2 laundromats, and it holds there too, which means she is not looking at a bad year. She is looking at a design. Land the line about the water department. Open her as the brave one. 2 sets of books, every page photographed, 6 years of insurance in a phone gallery. Let that stand for about 40 seconds. Then T5 in 2 moves. First, the file was never insurance against the government. Carla had been skimming from the wash account since 2019, $140,000 across 6 years, in amounts small enough to look like rounding. And the photographs were leveraged to hold over the financier on the day he finally noticed. Second move, and this is the one that lands. He noticed in year 2. He checked it, priced it, and let it run. Because a bookkeeper who is stealing from you can never in her life report you. He bought 6 years of guaranteed silence for $140,000 and let her believe the entire time that she was the clever one. Neither of them ever mentions it. Both of them know. Both of them know the other one knows. That silence was the most reliable contract anybody in this story ever signed, and it was never written down. And it held for 6 years. It stops holding the morning the accounts freeze, because leverage over a man with nothing left is not leverage. She goes to the government on a Thursday. 4 days later, that decision is the only reason she is alive. The collapse, procedurally. Then the turn. Seizure warrants, not raids, accounts frozen at 9 in the morning on a Tuesday, simultaneously, because simultaneity is the entire point. Ruth Pacheco's payoff. The government takes the Ridgewood house and takes hers because the money that paid her mortgage came from the same account. Grace Lynn finds out from a news alert while working somewhere else. Then, the thing the audience is not expecting. $318,000 of the crew's money is inside the netting book when it freezes, and the book is a shared book. O'Woolley does not threaten anybody. She publishes the shortfall to her clients, accurately, with the client number attached. Put the email on screen and let the audience read the whole thing, because it is 9 words long. Client 61 is frozen. The shortfall is $318,000. No instruction, no name, no threat. Nothing any prosecutor on earth could charge. And 2 men are dead, or nearly dead, within a fortnight of it being sent. 14 days later, Victor Amato is found in his office. That same week, 2 men attend the wrong address in New Jersey, and a doorbell camera keeps the only record of it. Narrate both with absence and geometry. No method, no weapon, no sound. Nobody in this story was ever killed by law enforcement. Every single one of them was killed by accounting. The financier's undoing, and it is paperwork. 6 years of design, one exception. A loan needs a lender. And in January 2024, a new federal rule required the human being behind a company to be reported by name. His nominee, a man who had signed for 4 shells and never once asked what they were, reads the penalty clause and refuses. Simultaneously, the $400,000 that reached Venezuela had to be settled against a real asset with a real title, and a title needs a legal name. That document was signed once, in 2019, in a language he does not read, in a jurisdiction he assumed nobody would ever ask about. 2 documents, 5 years apart, on 2 continents. Then T6, and it should make the audience slightly uncomfortable about the side they are on. The nominee did not find his conscience. Priya Raman never threatened him, never raised her voice, and never made an offer. She put the penalty schedule on the table, said 4 sentences, and stopped talking. He filled the silence himself, the way people always do. It is the same technique the financier used on Solomon, and the same one used on Ruth Pacheco with a photograph, and the film says so out loud. She showed him a piece of paper and let him threaten himself. It is the only method in this entire story that ever worked, and by the end, both sides were using it. Call back to Solomon. Design fails at exactly 1 document. He is named on a Thursday and arrested in a country that extradites. The ledger, totaled on screen line by line, $4,500,000 to $700,000. Sentences plainly. Denny Nowak, 6 years, for $200 a day. Solomon Katz, 4, cooperating. Ed Rourke, disbarred, 3 years. Carla Mendez, 18 months, relocated. Grace Lynn, still not working in banking. Ruth Pacheco, no charges, no house, and dead 11 weeks after the eviction notice in her daughter's spare room, in a town she had never lived in. 4 sentences, no music. Then the last cold fact. Owuli was never charged. She was deposed as a witness, through counsel, in a jurisdiction of her choosing, and she went back to work, having legally and permanently kept her 14%. Close on Unit 4114, open, empty, rent paid until the end of the year. And on the shares nobody can claim, including one belonging to a man the federal government has still not agreed is dead. Then, in the last 90 seconds, T7. Go back to one sentence from VO 13. The backlog analyst who opened Grace Lynn's report and attached a single line about a car wash. Run the dates on screen. Because the dates are the proof. The queue was cleared in June 2022, and a second, far more specific approach reached a federal tip line in November 2023. 8 weeks after Sabrina Grant walked out of a federal facility and was followed for 11 days. Somebody watched that surveillance begin and understood what it meant before anyone in Queens did. It came from Owuli, not out of conscience and not under pressure. A client who is going to be caught anyway is a contagion risk, and a controlled loss is cheaper than an uncontrolled one. She gave the government precisely enough to finish client 61 and not one detail that touched the other 60. She then absorbed a $318,000 loss in public, in front of her entire book, which bought her something discretion never could have. 60 clients who watched her lose money rather than talk. Victor Amado died because of a number she published. She had known that number was coming for 7 months. Priya Raman's work was real. The water bill was real. She was also aimed, and she will retire without ever knowing it. The people in this story were not caught. They were spent. $18 million. 1 weekend to steal it. 6 years to wash it, and it never did come clean. 10 people took it. 3 are dead, 5 are in prison, 1 is on a coastline nobody can reach, and 1 of them has never been accounted for at all. Nobody in it was ever threatened. They were shown things, and they did the rest themselves. And the only person who understood the whole machine was never charged, never chased, and never named in an indictment, because she never technically moved a dollar. She just decided, one afternoon in November, which of her customers she could afford to lose. Not one of them was caught doing the crime. Every single one of them was caught doing the accounting.